Imagine tech inspectors from NASCAR surrounding a pristine Pontiac, measuring every detail twice, then 3 times. They check bore diameter and record exactly 4.094 inches. The stroke is precisely 4 inches. The calculated displacement comes to 421.19 cubic inches, and on paper, everything is legal. The carburetor appears stock. The cylinder heads appear to meet the regulations. Compression ratio measures within prescribed limits. The engine passes inspection, and then proceeds to humiliate engines with 100 more cubic inches of displacement. This incredible machine was built by Smokey Yunick, the engine that shouldn't have been possible. Between 1966 and 1967, Yunick apparently built what appeared to be a legal 421 cubic inch Pontiac, yet the performance he extracted rivaled 500 cubic inch monsters. Time and again, he passed tech inspection, even while the engine's output and behavior seemed to defy the laws of physics. Competitors lodged protests, inspectors launched investigations, but nobody could point to a specific violation, and yet everyone knew something was amiss. How could a man working out of a Daytona Beach garage build an engine so advanced it forced NASCAR to rewrite their rulebook? The answer lies in one of the greatest games of cat and mouse in racing history, where creative interpretation of rules crossed into borderline rule-breaking, and the boundary between them vanished entirely. Smokey's philosophy was simple: it's legal until they tell you it isn't. By the time they told him it wasn't, he'd already crossed the finish line. Yunick wasn't just another mechanic. A former World War II B-17 flight engineer, he brought military-grade precision to stock car racing. His Daytona Beach garage bore the sign, "Best damn garage in town." By the mid-1960s, he had built a reputation for exploiting loopholes others didn't even know existed. Oversized fuel tanks, clever aerodynamics, suspension geometry that bent rules without officially breaking them. If the rulebook didn't explicitly forbid it, Smokey considered it fair game. The 1966 NASCAR landscape presented the perfect challenge. Displacement limits capped engines at 427 cubic inches. Manufacturers like Chrysler deployed the 426 Hemi. Ford ran 427 seconds. Chevrolet developed their own 427 Monster. Meanwhile, Pontiac's largest production engine was just 421 cubic inches, and GM's corporate ban on factory racing support since 1963 meant Pontiac officially wasn't even formally competing. However, private teams received scattered parts and informal help from Pontiac engineers who happened to know Yunick personally. The mission was clear: make a 421 engine competitive against 427 seconds and Hemis, despite the officially imposed disadvantage. Where most builders would have conceded defeat, Smokey saw an opportunity. He recognized that NASCAR's inspection procedures measured only what they could see: gauges, bores, strokes, compression ratios, and assumed honesty. He realized those assumptions could be exploited. The 421 block provided a strong foundation: robust casting, good cylinder heads, trusted reliability. What it needed was to become something else, while appearing exactly as it should. With his aircraft engineer background, Yunick had tolerance awareness far beyond what stock car racing of the era considered. He understood that measurements depend heavily on how you measure. Legal could be a matter of perception. Meanwhile, NASCAR's rulebook was drafted by people who assumed racers would play fair. They were about to learn differently. The results were astonishing. In 1966-67, drivers like Curtis Turner piloted Yunick-prepared Pontiacs to speeds that stunned competitors, posting top qualifying runs and dominating at tracks of every type: short ovals, superspeedways, tight corners. A 421 SID engine, giving up displacement to Hemis and 427 seconds, should have been a mid-pack performer at best. Instead, it won races and consistently ran at the front. Claimed output hovered around 550 horsepower, conservative estimates whispered when pressed by Yunick. Dyno witnesses alleged 600 to 650 HP. numbers unheard of for even heavily modified 420D1 race motors, which typically delivered in the 465 to 485 HP range. But power wasn't the only anomaly. The torque curve was flat and strong from 4,000 to 7,000 revolutions per minute, something that didn't match the known architecture of a Pontiac 421 plus standard cam profiles. Fuel consumption was unusually high for a realistically claimed power level. Oil consumption was unusually low for such pushing of the envelope. Every data point suggested something fundamentally different was happening inside that engine. Yet tech inspection kept passing it as legal. Here's how the displacement shell game likely worked. NASCAR measured bore diameter in the cylinders with precision gauges and then calculated displacement by multiplying BORE to x/x pi x number of cylinders. Simple mathematics, they thought. But Yunick realized cylinders don't have to be perfectly round. His bores were slightly ovalized. At the top, where inspectors measured, they were perfect circles. As the bore went down, the shape expanded progressively, invisible to the standard bore gauge that only measured one dimension. The result, real displacement estimated between 438 and 445 cubic inches. 20 plus cubes hidden in a geometry inspection didn't consider. The combustion chambers were equally clever. NASCAR verified compression ratios by filling chambers with water, measuring volume and calculating compression from cylinder volume versus chamber volume. Yunick machined hidden pockets or recesses in the chamber, then filled them with a removable clay during inspection. After the first heat cycle, the clay melted away or burned out, increasing compression to perhaps 14.1, while inspection records showed a legal 12.1. The trick required intimate knowledge of materials and inspection technique, precisely Yunick's domain. Even fuel systems became part of the legend. One famous anecdote: Yunick routed fuel lines through frame rails to add capacity without officially installing a larger tank. The story goes that NASCAR impounded one of his cars for inspection, discovered he had disconnected the gas tank, and witnessed the car driven back into the pits still running, implying hidden fuel capacity. Whether every detail is strictly accurate may be debatable, but the broader truth remains: Yunick remained consistently just within the rulebook's language while obtaining radically different results. As complaints reached a fever pitch, teams led by veterans like Richard Petty formally protested, and rival manufacturer engineers pored over numbers. NASCAR responded. They assigned dedicated inspectors to follow Yunick operations, implemented teardown inspections after each race, and tightened procedures. Despite the pressure, Yunick's cars repeatedly passed every inspection, though the margin for error grew thinner as NASCAR's protocols became more rigorous. Eventually, the cat-and-mouse game took its toll. With factory backing from General Motors drying up, GM enforced its ban on direct factory racing involvement in 1963 and maintained limitations on support. Pontiac's racing effort faded. Without full factory sponsorship and with competitors catching up, even Yunick couldn't sustain dominance. His 421 program effectively wound down by the late 1960s. In the end, this story stands not just as a tale of raw horsepower, but of ingenious engineering, and of a man who understood the difference between what was seen and what was done. Smokey Yunick didn't just build fast cars, he built fast cars that passed the rules. And that made all the difference. In his final years of running the combination that made the 421 engine infamous, Smokey Yunick's effort seemed less about pure competitiveness and more about deliberate defiance. It was, in many ways, a final gesture to NASCAR before he shifted his focus to other arenas. Around 1968 to 69, he turned toward the Indianapolis 500 and open-wheel efforts, applying his creative engineering philosophies to a different rulebook and sanctioning body. At the same time, the loopholes and tricks that had served him so well in stock car competition were being systematically closed by NASCAR's evolving inspection protocols. So the 421 program's competitive advantage finally faded. Yet what ended in the immediate sense did not die. Many of the techniques Yunick pioneered spread through racing. Port flowing, precision measurement, even the sophistication of pre-race and post-race inspections became standard practice because of him. NASCAR's technical inspection regime today, with templates, sealed engines, and spec components, owes a direct debt to the cat-and-mouse era he helped define. Because of that, the 421 Pontiac faded away from NASCAR competition and was soon replaced by the 455 cubic inch effort from Pontiac, which arrived too late to matter at the front of the field. Yunick's legacy after active competition shifted. He consulted for various race teams, wrote articles and later books discussing some of his secrets while withholding others, and ran his Daytona Beach garage, famously dubbed Best Damn Garage in Town, as a destination for aspiring mechanics searching for insight. Over time, NASCAR softened its attitude toward him, eventually recognizing that his genius, though controversial, had forced the organization to become more professional and more thorough. He was inducted into the International Motorsports Hall of Fame in 1990. Speedway-media.com, +3 Wikipedia, +3 legendary collector cars, +3 the mythology around the 421. Pontiac and Smokey Yunick has grown enormous. Stories of 11-foot fuel lines, 7/8 scale cars, and furious inspector confrontations abound. Some of these tales are verifiable, others are racing folklore expanding with each retelling. What remains indisputable is that the engine was extraordinary, and under nearly any reasonable interpretation, outside the spirit of the rules, even if it passed inspection by the letter. His work forced an evolution in how racing measured, policed, and attempted to guarantee fairness. Today's NASCAR cars, with rigorous tech inspections, sealed engines, mandatory templates, and highly detailed rulebooks, are built in direct response to the kind of ingenuity that Yunick displayed. The phrase "smoky legal" is still used in racing paddocks to describe something that technically complies with regulations, but pushes every limit of what should be allowed. His influence on engine building and race car engineering extends far beyond his own era. Techniques such as port matching, combustion chamber optimization, intake flow dynamics, and measurement accuracy all trace back to the groundwork he laid. Ultimately, what was gained from his legacy was stronger, more standardized technical oversight, which improved safety and competitive fairness. But something intangible may have been lost: the romance of the underdog mechanic from a modest garage beating full factory teams through sheer audacity and invention. Was Smokey Yunick a cheater or a genius? Very likely both. He built a 421 cubic inch engine that performed like a 500 cubic inch monster, passed the rulebook scrutiny, and forced NASCAR to rewrite major sections of their regulations. Not bad for a guy running a garage in Daytona Beach.